Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the movie Battleground. I am your host tonight because we have a interesting match. Obviously, you read the title. We have Aaron Connole, your usual host for movie Battleground, facing off against Madeeh Rehman. So this is going to be a good match because these are two competitors that are at the top of the food chain for a reason. Fun fact, I wrote the question, so that's one of those things that I like to get weird and creative with it. So I'm definitely curious to see how they have gone about it with their prep and their stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk to one of them.
Oh
Madeeh,
shit! What's
you
going
are
on?
4-3, so I'm just going
I am.
to you use my script as it pops up on screen. You're 4-3. This is one of those things that we've been talking about for months now. At this point, that you are flying under the radar in terms of your actual ability and talents within this league and format because for years you've gone by as the non-prep, the non, who gives a shit type of guy, but it's gotten to a point where you're starting to prep and you're starting to give a shit and you're starting to see results. So
Just a little bit.
even with a 4-3 record, they've been against top-notch competitors and they've all been close matches. So going into a match against Aaron, do you feel any pressure going up against the host of Battleground, and do you feel any pressure of continuing to be above 500? Because if you lose this, you'll be at the 500 mark. So what is your thoughts there?
I mean, I would like to stay above 500. That's,
The
you know,
competitor in you, I like that.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to be like the next. You know what I mean? But I really, sorry, Amaru. But yeah. Uh, sorry. But no, like I obviously I want to win, and the ones that I've lost have all come like down to the wire. I mean, my match against Jeremy, the one that actually did get recorded, was I thought a really close match throughout the entire match, and I'm sure a lot of people probably agreed with me. The one against Sean went right to the end to sudden death, which I hate. Uh, but no, every loss I've had, and then against Joe as well, who was at that point the champ. Like I haven't had
You're
any
welcome.
losses
Thank you.
against scrubs. Thank you. I appreciate that. I haven't lost to anyone who I feel like didn't in some way deserve the win.
Yeah.
Uh, and the wins that I have gotten also in the kind of same category. Like they've all been good, close matches. I mean, went up against Ryan, who was great. Went up against Jeremy again. That one never is going to be seen, but that one was also a really great match to do. Uh, but yeah, no, I've been kind of lucky. Like this last like 7, 8 matches have all just been like consistently like, all right, it's going to be fun. It's going to be prepped. It's going to be good. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's cool, man. Like it's fun to get into a debate with someone and you know they've put in the prep too, and you're both just going at it as
Yeah.
best as you can.
Yeah. So I guess my final question is, me as the writer, I went about it a different way than Aaron. Not comparing our styles, just in terms of
Right.
prep wise, it's a little bit different. So, was there anything prep wise that you had to approach it differently, or at the end of the day, movie debate is still about what you know and what you can BS?
Uh, it's kind of weird. So Aaron writes questions in a very specific way,
Yeah.
right? And there's nothing wrong with the questions he writes. I love some of the questions he writes, and I hate the was the worst movie you've ever seen question because that one was fucking terrible. But like it's kind of cool to have other people write questions because then you can kind of see a different
Yeah.
argument that you have to make. So I mean, some of the ones that you've put forward are really interesting questions that Aaron might not have come up with that I love looking at, but all right, how am I going to answer this?
Yeah.
How is he going to answer it? And it brings out a new, different kind of style to
Yeah.
how you want to answer. But the prep is still going to be the same. You got to watch the movies, you got to study the actors or actresses, whoever, and then just like go through it and figure out how you can make your arguments. And yeah, it's mostly 95% bullshit.
Jay has still never seen Defy Blood. So with that said, we're good luck, and let's go ahead and bounce over to your opponent. Aaron, I feel a little disrespectful that you're on the left right now, and I'm host. But
Oh,
hey, well, I'll let you. I'll let you.
there you go. There you go. I'll give it to
Ooh,
you.
5, 4, 3, 2. No, I'm just kidding. Aaron, so pretty much you're gonna regurgitate everything I just said. Oh, 4-2 with one KO. Ron Connole. Aaron, generally speaking, what are your thoughts going into this? I know that you personally, as the showrunner, you have a lot on your plate, but you figure out a way to prep a lot. But behind the scenes, you don't have as much nerdy facts as usual. But how is that going to factor in your overall, performance tonight?
Well, I didn't feel the need to write a thesis paper on what success is because this isn't a title match. But I still won that question, so fuck you. Uh,
You won
no,
the battle. I won the
listen, man, this
war.
is just for fun. I said when I lost that match that I wasn't going to play again unless it was, I felt worth it, essentially. And I didn't want to play in the tournament because I did not want to put myself in a position where I could potentially win enough matches to get to another title match. But when Madeeh bowed out of the tournament, for scheduling reasons, and I gave him a list of players, and his response was basically, "Yeah, but what about you?" And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll play. Let's go. I love Madeeh. I think he's a great guy. If I had to say someone was the most improved player of like all time, it's definitely Madeeh. And for me, I feel like I have a very unique experience playing because I've never written my own questions. So every time I get to play, and I think I've had almost a different person write every single time. I think you're the only person who's ever written more than one match for me. So it is a new experience every time I play of what's the mindset.
Yeah. And so, yeah, last but not least, is this one of those matches that if you do win this, that it's going to get weird in terms of scheduling and potential other matchups? Or at the end of the day, this match is kind of at a wall, and then we're going to go from there, down the road?
No, I'd say at this point, at the end of the day, I definitely can't reach a title match because I just lost one, and there's no way I'm going to finagle that for myself because I don't want to. Like we all know, if I wanted to, I could, and I don't want to. That's the truth. I don't need to lose to you to a fourth time. So yeah, if I win, like theoretically by the rules of the league now, if I win, I get another match, and if there's somebody there who doesn't have an apparent partner to play against, I will play them. If I lose, then by the rules, I'm done for the rest of the season, and that doesn't bother me at all. So be what it may, I'm just here to have fun with a great debater and play these questions.
Absolutely. I know you're going to bring it. I know Madeeh's going to bring him. So with that said, let's go into the movie Battleground.
I'll bring up the thing for you now so you can read it.
All right, so movie Battleground is the first to 3 points, the best of 5 rounds. Every correct question is worth a point. If you get 3 in a row, you get a knockout, and then if at any point after the first 4 questions it's tied, then we're going to go to a blind round. So I'm definitely curious to see how these players are going to go about this. I know they're going to bring it, and I actually have a prediction: the blind round is going to come. So with that said. We have a 60-second opening, a 2-minute rebuttal, then a 4-minute open debate where they're just going to scratch and claw and go at each other, finalized by a 60-minute closing argument. So these competitors know exactly how they're going to handle this. I know how I'm going to host it. And we have 3 beautiful judges behind the scenes who are going to judge this amazingly. So without further ado, any other questions, gentle peeps?
Are you sure it's 60 minutes, not 60 seconds?
Maybe. Is this a high match?
This match is going to be 4 hours long. We're just going to close for 60.
If this was another high match, 60 seconds would feel like 60 minutes. So,
don't even try, man. I don't even remember what
I'd
happened.
ask Madeeh, but he doesn't remember.
I don't. I rewatched it and I still don't remember what happened.
By the way, just give a special shout out. We have Alejandro, Jay Burns, and Jake Tato behind the scenes who are judging, and we will see them when the players are done with question 1.
All right. So we're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I didn't need to bring that in that early, but you want to go ahead and read the first question then, and I'll bring it up.
Yeah, I just had to. All right. So the first question, once again, written by moi, in the strength category of the Wizarding world. Aside from Voldemort, who is the best villain within the entire Wizarding world? So, I forgot who's going first and second.
He's up first on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Madeeh has elected to go first on question 1. So 60 seconds when you begin. And
I just want to throw out there before we start, nobody shit on Henry for being a bad host. I've had multiple exams and classes over the course of the last week, so I did not send him a match breakdown. I am feeding this all to him as we're going. So don't get at him for if he sounds a little.
I don't think anybody was gonna, but yeah, that's fine.
Well, we don't get enough comments for it, but like I just want to get out ahead of it,
We have Jay and Jake in the room right now. Like they're definitely gonna give you shit for it, but whatever. Okay, so the question says besides Voldemort, but even if Voldemort was in the equation, I'd still pick this character. Without a doubt, the villain that most people despise, but is also the best villain in the Harry Potter franchise, is Dolores Umbridge. She is quite possibly the most hated character in the entire Wizarding World universe. Uh, He's one of those people that's like really overly calm and overly polite, and like you know already that that's a bad thing. Like anyone you meet in real life who's that polite, you're like, nah, I don't trust that woman. She tortures children. She gets kicked out of that and is really controlling around those people who are around her. She's basically an actual psychopath, and I say that she's an even better villain than Voldemort in the way that I can say that is Voldemort is incapable of love because of the way that he was born throughout the books or whatever. She is capable, and she still chooses to be the way she is. And I'll cut the last 3 seconds.
Time. All right, we're gonna bounce over to Aaron. 6 seconds when you begin.
All right. So aside from Voldemort and Umbridge, the Harry Potter franchise, Wizarding World franchise, however you approach it, is from that point left without a lot of great traditional villains. I guess the other one people could argue for is Grindelwald, but quite frankly, with what those films did, it's not a road I want to go down. So I'm going for a much more unconventional pick. I chose the Dementors. In terms of their role within the Harry Potter franchise, they are the only villain that is the lead villain of a film aside from Voldemort, because at the end of the day, they are the thing that they are fighting against in the third book. Even in the fifth one, where Umbridge is most present, Voldemort, at the end of the day, is the main antagonist that they are fighting against. The Dementors, in terms of villainy, are the worst because there's nothing human about them. They are creatures that are designed to suck the joy and soul out of people and leave you lifeless and cold and empty, which is almost a fate worse than death, and certainly not something that Umbridge can.
And time. All right, we're gonna have a 2-minute rebuttal from Madeeh when he begins speaking.
So Aaron mentioned that, that they were the main villain of the third book, which, yeah, it's technically true, although they were more so worried about Sirius Black, and that was a misdirect and ended up being Peter Pettigrew, but whatever. But I don't think that that's a knock on Dolores. Yes, she wasn't the main villain of the film, but she was the one who stole the show. I mean, if you look at Game of Thrones, for example, the Night King is their main villain, but you still are like, all right, well, there's also the Lannisters, there's also these characters that are really just more influential, and you care more about whether they die or not in that series. So just because it's the main villain doesn't mean that it's the better villain. Umbridge is one of those people who, if you have her as a teacher, which is very possible in this day and age or any day and age, you despise that class and you despise that teacher. She's prejudiced, extremely prejudiced against anyone who's not a witch or wizard, which kind of also does fall in line with stuff that Voldemort does, where he's very racist towards anyone who's not of pure blood. But at the same time, he has his own way about it. She's just like, oh no, they're different. I don't like anything that's not within this realm. Voldemort's still paired up with like certain other species. She's just straight up racist to anything that's not magical in her specific viewpoint. She also, some of her actions throughout the film that take place in the fifth film, where she is basically just feeding information to the Ministry. She's blocking the kids from actually learning Defense Against the Dark Arts, which after someone was just like murdered the last year, they're like, no, we don't really need to know this, so let's just pretend that there's no issue and ignore the problem, and instead I'll just be like, no, you don't need to learn this. We can learn about the very fancy, like, pygmy sort of shit. Like it's not, she endangers everyone, not just by like hurting them, but also by preventing them from learning the things that they really need to know.
And time. All right, 2-minute rebuttal from Aaron when he begins speaking.
So yes, I would say that you are correct in what you're saying. Yes, she is a danger because she's circumventing the learning and not teaching them what they need to learn. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about villainy, pure villainy, I would say Umbridge is a better character than she is a villain. At the end of the day, she is a school teacher who is mean to students, and the worst thing that she really does on campus is give Harry that quill, and I guess multiple students, that quill that etches into them. But she's not teaching the students what they need to know. So Harry, Ron, and Hermione, a couple of fifth years, are completely able to circumvent that and teach the students what they need to know. And the only way that she's able to find out about it after them doing it for nearly a year is for her to essentially drug a student because she uses truth serum on them. So she's easily defeated by a group of 15-year-olds in terms of her intent in the school being to stop the education and training of young wizards. And then when it comes to her actually confronting students, she's easily tricked by Hermione into going into the forest. The first thing a student says to her, she falls for it. And when she comes up against any type of magical threat, which she holds that deep-rooted hate for, she's defeated by them. I mean, her last appearance in the film is being pulled off into the forest after being picked up by Grop, a mentally handicapped dwarf, or a giant, excuse me, and then she's pulled off into the forest by centaurs. She's literally no match for anything in that school or around the school outside of students. And even then, the older the students are, the easier they're able to get around her. She's a really well-written character, and I will give you that. And she reminds you of that teacher that you hate in school. But as a villain, she's really not all there because her goal is to stop the students from learning, and she doesn't successfully do that. Like, that's just it. She has a goal and she doesn't succeed in it, and she doesn't do anything all that sinister truly outside of it.
And time. All right. With that said, the openings and the rebuttals are down for a 4-minute open debate where they're going to go back and forth. So, with that said, 4 minutes when one of you begins speaking.
I gotta give you credit. Picking the Dementors is a interesting choice, but it's wrong. I mean, if you go through the villains that are in the Harry Potter franchise, there's Dolores, who's a better villain. I mean, we weren't able to pick Voldemort, but you also could have picked Bellatrix Lestrange, who's played brilliantly by Helena Bonham Carter. You could have picked either of the Malfoys. You could have picked Peter Pettigrew, who's played by Timothy Spall. Like, there's a lot of villains who are better than the Dementors and actually have character, uh, and aren't just floating cloths that suck away happiness. The Dementors basically are just what J.K. Rowling is now. Like, they're not really anything of substance. They go around just like sucking happiness out of people and then they go away. Like, if you ignore it, it's fine. Like, there's nothing really there to them. They're basically just like zombies. Like, if you put like them in any other franchise, they're basically the equivalent of just zombies walking around, occasionally doing something, and then you get rid of them with a simple spell, and then that's it. Like, they were scary when you didn't know how to beat them, and then after that, there was nothing to them.
Except the difference is the spell that's supposed to beat them is something that they say in the films can only really be done by powerful witches and wizards. We see in the fifth film when they're practicing,
Everyone does it.
The strongest of students. Let me talk. The strongest of students are still struggling to learn how to do it, and it takes Harry being in a life-threatening situation and believing that his father somehow conjured that to save him. It has to come from a very deep place to be able to conjure a spell that can beat them. Secondly, to address the litany of villains that you threw out there, Draco Malfoy is a school bully at best. The biggest thing he's given in the franchise is to kill Dumbledore, and he can't successfully do it. Lucius is a fucking wimp. He's all talk, but when it comes to the action, he backs off. Pettigrew's most villainous actions are all done off screen. When he's on screen, he's sniveling at best. All of these villains, they're good characters. And that's what Umbridge is. She's a good character, but as a villain, there's nothing really there. The Dementors are great villains because they are characterless. They are designed to go at you and suck your soul. And the thing is, they can't even really be controlled. We see multiple times over the course of the third film where they break the one rule that they're given, which is to not attack students, and they attack students. They go after Harry on the train. They go to give him the Dementor's kiss that night on the lake. We see that they are a constant threat. They invade the Quidditch game as well, and that's going after potentially more than one student. So the one thing that they're supposed to be, which is controlled, as you say, like a mindless zombie, they're not. They can think for themselves, and they still go after you. And what they do to you is a fate worse than death. In the brief seconds that we see Sirius on screen following the Dementor's kiss, he is literally dead-eyed, shivering, the fear in his face. That's what they do to you. That, to me, is a fate worse than death.
They are controlled, though, because if you look at the later books, they're controlled by Voldemort and his forces. Like, there's a whole thing of, like, in the fifth book, they're literally that's why Harry's in court at the beginning when we meet Umbridge for the first time. Is because they're like maybe the Dementors were being controlled by Voldemort, and then that's what happened. They're basically just like an army of mindless things that are just controlled by some other force, and that's really what they are. They're just like they're foot soldiers, and they're really useless foot soldiers because a bunch of 15-year-olds, like you said, all of a sudden learned this really extremely powerful spell that could take them out. And like, yeah, Harry's like got that like chosen one thing all over him, and that's probably why the Dementors were after him in the first place. But the fact that a bunch of 15-year-olds learned it like in their fifth year with Harry Potter teaching them, who's not by any means a master of anything, he's just kind of there, that really takes away from them. They're not really that scary. They're like the zombies in Walking Dead in like season 7. Like they're not the main issue anymore. You just kind of like have them there, like, all right, get rid of them and then move on to the actual things that are threatening you.
And time, as Jay would say, things that are threatening you, strike that from the record. So with that said, we have your 1 minute closing, starting with Madeeh, and whenever you begin speaking.
If you ask anyone who's a fan of the Harry Potter franchise, they will all agree that Dolores Umbridge is the worst character, not worst character, but the most hated character, and also the best villain. Voldemort isn't capable of love because he was born by a love potion. And whatever reasons J.K. Rowling come up with, that means that he's not capable of feeling love. She is. She chooses to be this way. She chooses to hurt people and revel in it. She's actually a psychopath in the truest form. And the fact that she's also racist and she's doing all these things to hurt people, yes, she may not be useful in a fight against Hagrid's half brother or against the Centaurs, but that doesn't make her any lesser of a villain. She's terrifying and she's a like she makes your blood boil for the entirety of that movie. And all of that put together doesn't just make her the second best villain of the franchise. It makes her better than Voldemort. That one movie, you hate her more than in any of the other movies that you hate Voldemort. Voldemort had 8 movies to make you hate him. She had one and she made you hate him more.
All right, 60 seconds when Aaron begins speaking.
Again, I would say with Umbridge, again, she is a well-written character, and I'm not going to take that away from the character. But as a villain, when you look at a villain, when you compare her to other villains, she's really not that effective a villain. She's a mean school teacher, and nobody likes mean school teachers. But the fact of the matter is, a bunch of teenagers beat her at every wind, and it took her going after a student with a truth serum to actually figure out what was going on, because she couldn't do it on her own. She needs those other things. She's useless in a fight. In fact, and this may or may not hurt me, but I'm going to throw it in there, the most villainous thing that she does in your film is use my creature, because it's not Voldemort that sent the Dementors after Harry. It was Umbridge. She says that at the end of the film. So the fact of the matter is, the worst action that your character can commit is sending my villain after them. The fact of the matter is, the Dementors leave you lifeless, cold, and deranged. It is a fate worse than death, and the fact that they have no human qualities makes them
time. All right, so with that said, that is the end of round 1. So we're going to bring in our judges, and we're going to decide who takes the very first point. All right, I'll give you judges all a few seconds to gather your thoughts. We're going to go Tato, Jay, and Alejandro. Tato, when you're ready, 30 seconds or less, give us your primary reason why you're picking who you're picking, and give us your answer.
Madeeh got the point for me on this one. Just like that she's real, the racism, just hit hard on that point.
All right, so we got 1 vote for Madeeh. Jay, 30 seconds or less. Give us who you're picking.
This one sucks because they both put up a really good fight. I'm gonna have to go with Madeeh on this one. And Aaron kind of shot himself in the foot in his closing argument, saying the worst thing that your character did was send my villain choice after them. That's still a point in Madeeh's favor, because you're being told what to do by the worst character, by the worst villain. To me, that's what that one was. And there was a lot more. Umbridge being a hated character, I think a lot of fans, like Madeeh stated, if you ask them who their most hated villain is, it's not Voldemort, it is Umbridge. He just was able to keep Aaron on his back foot for almost the entire match, and Aaron was just trying to define what a villain was to an audience that understands what a villain is.
I totally understand. And like Aaron even said in this thing, that might shoot him in the foot. And unfortunately, to Jay's point, it ddid. Sounds like Alejandro would have agreed. But the first point is going to go to Madeeh, 1-0. So we have a. Oh, there you go. There's his record.
Good round.
All right. It was a really good round. I can tell that, despite them going 2 on that, they definitely were close. So with that said, we're going to go into our second question category of Idris Elba. What 20th century action film would have been better if Idris Elba was in it instead? And as the writer of this question, I wanted to preface that I didn't necessarily say it needed to be the lead because I wanted to be open for interpretation. But yes, as a main character. So with that said, gentlemen, Aaron is going to go first. 60 seconds for your opening. Whenever you're ready.
So as I'm sure Madeeh will also state, this question was really difficult because essentially what you're asking is, we have 100 years worth of action films. Which one should Idris Elba have been casted in? Which is just a really, really wide berth. So I had to try and start somewhere to narrow it down. And what is the one thing that's still in the modern pop culture that people want Idris Elba to do? And that is James Bond. And there are James Bond films all over the 20th century. So for me, it was a matter of picking which one. And so what I ended up going with is the Bond film, which I think has the combo of who I feel is the weakest of the Bonds on choice with one of the best movies that you could pick. So I'm choosing to recast Idris Elba as James Bond in GoldenEye instead of Pierce Brosnan. And I'll let the time roll down from there because there's not much I could fit in 10 seconds.
That's what she said. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Madeeh, I'm sure you can fit it in 60 seconds when you begin speaking.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. So I went a completely different route. I actually chose a movie that I don't like, and the lead is a big part of it. I went with The Fifth Element, and I have him replacing Bruce Willis. So I know a lot of people do love The Fifth Element. For me, I thought it was an almost good movie, but Bruce Willis didn't really fit into it because let's be real, and I know he's sick, and I'm not saying this just because, but he wasn't a great actor. Like, let's be real. He was a good action star for Die Hard. He was fine in The Sixth Sense, but he wasn't a good actor or thespian by any chance. So I wanted to put someone who actually could bring some acting chops to it, while also being able to do the other things that Bruce Willis can do on screen, which is bring the action, make the jokes, and have his charisma. And Idris Elba has all of those in way more than Bruce Willis does. So I put him in The Fifth Element as Dallas Corbin.
All right, and that is time. So we have Black Superman as Bond or Black Superman as a cabbie. Your 2-minute rebuttal, Aaron, when you begin speaking.
All right. So with the GoldenEye Brosnan pick, I'm sure, depending on what Bond you're a fan of, I've lost you at the whole, I don't think Pierce Brosnan is a great Bond. And it goes deeper than I don't think Pierce Brosnan is a great Bond. I'm honestly, like, as you say of Willis, I'm really not all that convinced by Brosnan as an actor. When you look at his career overall, outside of the Bond films, which are, of course, going to get a great reception, generally speaking, because it's James Bond, he doesn't really have much in his career of note. And the stuff that is more memorable, you could almost argue, is stuff like Mamma Mia, which is memorable because it's not very good. I'm just not convinced by him as an actor. GoldenEye is a really great film, and I think the Bond franchise, coming off of a 6-year hiatus, needed some sort of interesting relaunch. The idea of taking Bond and moving him into a post-Cold War setting, I think, is really intriguing. And I like what they do. And I think a lot of the supporting cast in this film is great, whether it's Famke Jensen or Robbie Coltrane or Sean Bean as the villain. I think a lot of supporting cast is what lift this film up. But quite frankly, I just think that Bond, he doesn't work for me in this movie. Bond in the older films, let's all be real here, there was always a bit of a rapey quality to him. And this film for me is a lot worse than even some of the older ones because I don't think Brosnan has a smooth bone in his body. And I think Idris Elba would fix a lot of that, especially because there are multiple scenes in this film where him and the leading girl, I apologize, I forget her name offhand, just break out into sex, like really awkwardly kind of break out into sex. And I think as an actor, Idris Elba could sell that a bit more. We also know he has all the qualities that people want in a Bond now. He's suave, he can carry action well, he looks great in a suit. And I think that a Bond film that is one of the best could be elevated to potentially the best if all we did was flip out that Bond and put in an actor who is better suited to the character and specifically some of the material that is in this film to carry it better than Brosnan does.
And time. We're going to bounce over to Madeeh for his 2 minute.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. He put it in the chat for me.
Okay, I'm still reeling from the fact that you didn't think Pierce Brosnan was a good Bond. Okay. Okay, so here's the thing about Fifth Element. Everyone in this movie is doing a very ball-to-the-wall performance. Like, Gary Oldman has half a head of hair and is going nuts, and he even calls evil on the phone at one point. Chris Tucker is doing who knows what, but it fits within the universe. Mila Jovovich is doing a phenomenal job playing a character that fits into the universe. And then Bruce Willis is just being Bruce Willis. It doesn't fit. It's one of the things about the movie that, like, when you have your lead and you're trying to put him into a universe that you're making this crazy, expansive universe, and everything is wild and everything is crazy, and then all of a sudden you have Bruce Willis in the middle of it, it doesn't fit. Having someone like Idris Elba, who is capable of doing comedy and adding in his own flair, and not just being like the brooding like sexy guy in the lead. Like, he's an actual capable actor, and he's able to do and bring a lot more into it. If you just put him in Goldeneye, you're not changing anything, because he would still be playing the character of Bond, and he would be essentially giving a very similar performance to what Pierce Brosnan did. And let's be real, like, the Goldeneye isn't great just because of Pierce Brosnan. It's great because of everything else as well. Everything in that movie fits together. And Idris Elba, if you just swap out the pieces, you're not changing anything too dramatically. He's not going to elevate the film any further than Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan is a good actor. A lot of his best work is not as well seen, but he's definitely a very talented actor, and no one can deny that from him. I mean, he's really good in The World's Edge, which I thought was fun, but just swapping out Idris Elba for Pierce Brosnan doesn't do anything.
And time. All right. So now, with that said, we are going to go to the 4 minute open debate where they can punch each other in the face like Black Superman would be proud. 4 minutes when you've been speaking.
So I want to start off with, because obviously that's why debate is a tricky thing. It's one thing if a film didn't work for someone, and I don't think The Fifth Element's a perfect film either, but Bruce Willis kind of being Bruce Willis in that film is the point of the movie. Corbin Dallas is supposed to just be this everyman. He is a former army man who was high enough in the ranks that he's thought of for a mission like this, but he's not decorated enough that he gets some big grand thing afterwards. He goes on and becomes a taxi driver, right? He's meant to be the everyman who slots into all this weirdness. He is playing the straight man to Mila Jovovich speaking another language and Chris Tucker doing, I agree with you, whatever the hell they had him doing in that movie, or Gary Oldman being Gary Oldman at the nth degree. He's the guy who's supposed to play off of all that and just kind of stare at it and go, what the fuck? And I think for what Bruce Willis brings to roles in his performance, he works perfectly for that. I think the fact that Elba is a better actor almost, and a little more suave and a little more of all that, I think it actually ruins what the movie is going for, which is you're taking this crazy world-ending scenario and just throwing the average Joe into it. Whereas in Bond, Elba is a better actor than Brosnan, and that's fine. If we have a difference of agreement on Brosnan's acting, Elba is a better actor than Brosnan, and there are
I agree with you there.
That Brosnan can't carry because he's not nuanced enough to fight through whatever weirdness is in that script the way that other actors previously did. So I think putting Elba in, yes, it is just as simple as getting a better actor who's already publicly suited for the role to play it to make it that much better.
I think, okay, so Idris Elba is a better actor than Pierce Brosnan, but that I agree with you on that part. But the issues that happen in GoldenEye are not because of Pierce Brosnan. It's more because like there's little dips in the script and they're trying to figure out their way of how to reboot Bond for a new era after having, it kind of be the same for the past, what was it at that point, 30 years. So having Idris Elba be in that spot, it doesn't change anything. You just have Idris Elba giving basically the same performance because he's going to be playing Bond to the level that Pierce Brosnan did. Like, if you look at Pierce Brosnan's performance throughout the Bond films, his performance is never bad. It's the movies around him that are gradually declining in quality. So having Idris Elba go into that role in GoldenEye, where Pierce Brosnan is doing great, but the movies around him is also pretty damn good, you're not changing anything. You're just saying, okay, now we're gonna have this actor do the exact same thing. When I'm putting him in Fifth Element, I'm not sure if Bruce Willis was meant to be the everyman who was put into this role and he was just doing it, or if that was just Bruce Willis just deciding, yeah, I'm just gonna do what I usually do, and they're gonna make a bunch of money off of it. Like it's hard to tell with Bruce Willis films when he's actually doing the role as it was written, or when he's just doing his own thing, and then they were like, well, it's Bruce Willis. What can you do? That's why I want him in the Fifth Element, because if you put Idris Elba in there, who is an actual performer and can bring all these other things to it, yeah, if he's playing the Everman, sure, Idris Elba can still do that, and he'll bring more charisma and more gravitas to it, and it'll be more enjoyable to watch. But if it wasn't, and Luc Besson just wasn't able to do it, which I personally think is the case, then it's more that Idris Elba can actually bring something new to the movie and have this film that is all over the place and has all these different elements like kind of colliding with each other, and then Bruce Willis kind of walks through. Instead, you have him as something that fits into that universe and actually elevates the movie and makes it feel like a whole thing, not just, oh, we put Bruce Willis in space.
I'll just let the clock run down.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything for 5 seconds.
Yeah, you're good.
Even though you just did. So with that said, we're going to go into 60-second closings.
I'll support that.
Aaron, when you begin speaking.
All right. So again, just to kind of surmise it all, I do think putting Idris Elba into GoldenEye would make a good film great. I've previously argued before that a bad film that's already bad cannot be made great by one single actor. But I do think that Elba is a much better actor than Brosnan. And the scenes in that film that are awkward because Brosnan doesn't seem to know how to perform them, like a lot of the sex scenes and the flirting scenes and the stuff like that hits a really, really weird tone, like even weirder than older Bond films. I think Elba has enough suave in him to pull off. I think Elba is the exact opposite type of actor to Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis can play the everyman well, and that is the intent that Luc Besson was going for with that film. He's the straight man in all the weirdness. So putting Elba in and having the character kind of, because he's elevated and he's a little more comedic, I don't think Elba can play the straight man very well. When you think of all of Elba's best roles, he's not the everyday man. He's not the straight man. He is better than that. And thus I don't think he does anything to elevate the material when Bruce Willis is fit for it.
And time. Fit for. Strike from the record. Madeeh, 6 seconds for your closing when you begin speaking.
I think you're really doubting on Pierce Brosnan's abilities. I mean, in a lot of the films that he was in that aren't Bond, like Mrs. Doubtfire, he's fantastic in. Thomas Crown Affair, he's really good in that one as well. He is a good actor. He's just doing what the job required, which is what Idris Elba would have to do. If he goes into something like Fifth Element, where you can kind of play around a little bit more and actually create a character, not just follow in the footsteps of at that point 4 other people who had played Bond, you're able to do what you kind of want, and having a universe that is so crazy, you can do crazy things in it. Him being opposite from Gary Oldman would be insane, because then you'd actually have 2 people who are very good actors collaborating and figuring out how to make the best performance of it. You also picked the wrong Bond movie. If you're going to put him in a Bond movie, I would probably put him in one of the weirder Roger Moore ones, because Roger Moore didn't always perform the way that Bond was supposed to, in my view. And if you put Idris Elba in one of those films, it would have been a better Bond film.
And time. All right. So with that said, we are going to jump over to our judges, and we're going to see who takes the second point. So we're going to go Jay, Alejandro, and Tato. Start off with Jay, 30 seconds or less. Give us your primary reason why you're picking who you're picking and who gets your vote.
This one was actually a lot tougher than I thought it would be. There were some things that I wanted to see brought up that weren't brought up. Mainly Is this going to be a standalone Idris Elba Bond film, as GoldenEye is the first in that series? Is he going to continue forth? But even saying that, I think I'm going to have to give this point to Aaron. He was just a little bit more succinct with his arguments as to why Idris Elba would be a better Bond than Brosnan. And his everyman argument for Bruce Willis in The Fifth Element really kind of sealed it for me.
All right, so one vote for Aaron. Alejandro, 30 seconds left. Give us your vote.
Yeah, I agree. It was. I love questions like this where it's strictly hypothetical and we only have to go based on what everybody says. I think Pierce Brosnan is kind of what you imagine when you picture James Bond. Like if you hear about that guy, Pierce Brosnan is the face that comes into your mind. And I agree with Madeeh, that guy doesn't get half as much credit as he should. But ultimately went with Aaron for the same reason that Jay did, like changing Bruce Willis out for Idris Elba. You still have to have him play the like normal guy, the straight man to the bananas that are on screen, and Chris Tucker and Gary Oldman. And you guys are way too harsh on Chris Tucker. I'm going to throw that out there. But yeah, Aaron gets my point.
And you know this, man. So we don't get Potato's vote. But with that said, we are now deadlocked one apiece. So definitely curious as a champ and also as a host where I cannot say anything, not giving out my opinions. It's so much fun doing this, and I'm loving it. You guys are doing great. So with that said, we're going to bounce over.
I did just want to throw out to clarify the point that was brought up. We clarified in the match chat beforehand that because the question was about a singular film, he would not have carried forward. I just forgot to bring that up in the match because the three of us had already decided it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bring it up. Yeah. But yes, it was. It
was a point that was
because it's not a franchise. It was not a franchise question. It was a movie question. But yes, thanks for the clarification. So with that said, we're gonna bounce over to your third question, which I chose by myself in the category of horror. What performance within a horror film would you consider to be the most Oscar worthy? Horror is a genre that does not get a lot of love at the Oscars, so I'm letting these two gentlemen tell these old shitty white men why they're wrong and why these performances should have gotten at least a statue nomination. So with that said, we're going to start with Madeeh. 60 seconds for your opening when you begin speaking.
You know how much I love telling old white men that they're wrong. I went with a performance from a fairly recent film, Lupita Nyong'o as Abby and also as Red in the film Us. This film, although it wasn't the best Jordan film overall, her performance is a standout. The fact that she's playing these two opposite characters, playing both sides of, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, fuck it. Playing both sides of this characters of nature versus nurture sort of thing, where she is playing a side where she did have love growing up and she was married and she had a happy relationship and she's got this family that she loves, and then the other side also has this family but she has no love in her life at all and she just wants to escape and show humanity that they're people too. Lupita Nyong'o in this film is phenomenal, as she always is, but in this film in particular, she kills it in both roles that she plays.
All right, one of us, Google Gobble, one of us. Aaron, 6 seconds when you begin speaking.
All right, so obviously this is a question that has been a highly debated topic over the last couple of years with companies like A24 and directors like Jordan Peele coming into the game. Horror films have seen a much elevated position in the genre, right? Over the last couple of years alone, just to not even go with your pick, Toni Collette was someone who people argued for. You had Willem Dafoe, who people argued for. As somebody myself who has openly admitted that I'm not the biggest horror fan, I decided to go a little bit older with this question, back when these old white men would have been young white men, in a performance from a legendary film that's now considered a cinematic classic that I truly don't understand how it wasn't even nominated. And for me, that is going to be Robert Shaw as Captain Quint in Steven Spielberg's Jaws. He is the one of the supporting characters in that film. He's probably the third of three, but it is a performance where every time he comes on screen, he grabs your attention and captivates you in what he is doing. And it's the exact type of performance.
And time. Let's not knock Aaron for the fact that those old white men still would technically be old white men in 1975, but we won't knock him for that. 2 minutes rebuttal. Madeeh, when you begin speaking.
Those old white men have been old white men since the 60s, bro. Let's be real. I want to highlight something that Lupita Nyong'o does in this film. There's a scene where their families are facing off against each other, where she's explaining who they are to each other, essentially saying that this person was born and then there was the shadow of her. And it's a really good set piece of like, all right, it's a very the way it's shot, it's not as confrontational as I would have shot it if I was a director, but I'm not Jordan Peele, so fuck it. It's one of those things where you're enthralled by everything that Lupita Nyong'o is doing. There's 6 other people in the room, technically 3, but however that works. But the only one you're focused on is Lupita Nyong'o. Everything she does with her eyes, with her hands, with her small movements that she's doing, the little tick that she does as Red, where she's walking in a very specific way. Uh, it's one of those things where you're looking at it and you're saying, "Oh, she's really killing it. Like she's really giving it her all, and she's not doing it in a campy way. She's doing it in a way that you're really noticing the difference between these two sides of this basically the same person in the best way that I can explain it. Uh, Throughout the film, this confrontation is what drives the plot forward. Like you're constantly looking for her in the background or her in the foreground, and you're trying to see which one of them is going to come out on top. And you're not necessarily hating on one side or loving one side, but you have that unspecified bias towards Abby or Addie, sorry, where you're hoping that she survives because she kind of represents our side of humanity where Red does not. Um, Everything in this film is hinging on her performance and her performance opposite herself, and that makes it truly brilliant.
All right. We're going to bounce over to Aaron. 2 minutes when you begin speaking.
So while I do agree with you that Lupita Nyong'o is the best thing in that film, and she is quite good, I think part of the reason that she really, really stands out above the rest is because it's the script. It's not entirely her. Because the way that movie's written, no one else is really given the opportunity to go there. And I'm just going to spoil the twist. If you haven't seen Us in 3 years, that's on you at this point. At the end of the movie, it's revealed that when she was a child, her tethered flipped places with her. And that's why Red can speak, albeit a very strained voice based on an injury she suffered in that confrontation. So the character in and of itself is the only character who is human 2 times technically, because the tethered assimilating into society by then makes her human. Thus, it gives her more to do physically. She's the only person who gets 2 roles where she can speak. She's also, I would say, the tethered version of her, sort of an exposition dump, because she is the only one who can explain all of what's happening. It is well performed, but I think it's only she is the standout because the movie is engineering itself to force her to be the standout. Whereas I would argue other performances of the modern era that I referenced stand out more by the nature of the performance itself, standing above the rest in a great cast. And I would say the same for Captain Quentin Jaws. All 3 of those guys, Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss, turn in great performances. And I think their characters are all incredibly unique takes on the type of people that would be interested in this type of situation. But with Captain Quint, every time you see him on screen, he is believable in whatever form you see him, whether it's when he's introduced as the hero, he's the guy that's volunteering to go after the shark, whether it be as the wounded soldier of sorts, when he has that great monologue about the USS Indianapolis and the horrors of war related to sharks that he's seen, or whether it's at the end when he's fully off the hook and is sabotaging the boat so that he can get this shark himself. He delivers all layers perfectly without, yeah.
All right, so it's time. So now we are going to go into the 4-minute open debate. Hopefully it doesn't get horrifical, because I know these gentlemen love horror movies deep at their core. That's why I wrote it. Wink, wink. 4 minutes when the first person begins speaking.
This motherfucker just say horrifical.
I was just going to say, I'll let you go first. I just wanted to finish the line, if you don't mind. I was just saying that his performance stands out in the same way hers does, but the script doesn't have to jump through hoops to give it to him. I think it is on his performance that makes him stand out above the rest. That said, please go ahead, continue.
I think he probably went off script because he was apparently drunk the entire time when they were filming. Okay, here's the thing about Robert Shaw's performance. It's good, but it's not even the best in the film. I would argue that Richard Dreyfuss does a phenomenal job in the film. Schneider does an absolute phenomenal job in the film. Both of them, I thought, easily could have been nominated as well. I think just because Robert Shaw has that sort of like he stands out more in the film, if that makes sense. Like he's more of a like the way Jaws as a whole film works is it's a very grounded, everyday reality sort of thing. Like you're on the beach, you're not seeing people who are like only looking like Margot Robbie walking along the beach. You're just seeing like regular people on the beach. Everyone is like a very normal human being. And then there's Robert Shaw, who's for some reason I feel like at times thinks he's on stage when he's in this film. Like he's very like monologue-y and he's doing a lot of uh like vocal projection that you would do on stage, not something you would do necessarily in a film, which is a little strange considering the world that they've established by having everything else be realistic within the film. Schneider and Dreyfuss both fit into the film better, and they both give phenomenal performances. They just don't have that sort of that tiger shark submarine monologue that he has on the boat. Yeah, he's good in it, but he's not even the best performance in it. He also had more competition that year in the Oscars. So I have the list here. He had the people who were up for actor in a supporting role, which is what I would assume he would be put up for, is Jack Warden from Shampoo, which was great. Chris Sarandon, who was great in Dog Day Afternoon. Burgess Meredith, the great Burgess Meredith in Day of the Locust. Brad Dourif from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And George Burns, who won for The Sunshine Boys. So if you have to replace one of those five with Robert Shaw, it's a little tough. Like I don't know if you have to bounce one of them out to put him in. Whereas for us was completely shut out of the Oscars for who knows what reason. And Lupita Nyong'o only had to go up against Renee Zellweger and Judy, who was probably just going to get it because Cynthia Erivo, who was great in Harriet, Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story, Saoirse Ronan in Little Women, who I feel like you probably could have switched out no problem, and Charlize Theron in Bombshell as well. Another performance that was good, but not better than Lupita Nyong'o. So while Robert Shaw's performance might have been better than Lupita Nyong'o's, the competition was way higher in 1975 for him than it was in 2019 for Lupita Nyong'o. So I mean, and you're saying yeah, the script calls for it, but the script calls for it all the time. Like you make what you're given with the script. You can't just be like, oh, the script makes me do this performance. No, the script is there for you, and then it's on the actor to give the performance within what is written on the script. And you can either take it to be campy or you can take it to be phenomenal, which is what she did. Sorry, I feel like I talked the whole time on that one.
Yeah, basically, but it's fine. Look, at the end of the day, again, I had the awards as well pulled up. You're right. I think you absolutely could sub Robert Shaw in place of some of those guys. At the end of the day, judging older Oscars is harder because at this point, 2019 was 3 years ago. With the older Oscars, you're having to look at what's hung on in the pop culture. What could you have possibly see? But I think Robert Shaw's performance does more than enough to warrant himself a nomination. Whereas when I talk about the script and Lupita Nyong'o, yes, an actress has to be great to deliver that role. But at the end of the day, I think there are multiple great actresses who could have done it because it's handed to her on a silver platter by way of how the character's written.
And time. All right, we're gonna go to Madeeh for his his closing. Whenever you begin speaking. Sorry, Coronas are kicking in.
Thank you for hosting while on Corona. The drink, not the
It's like a
the flu.
Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, exactly. Except slightly better produced.
Family.
We're all in shape and we showed up on time. Okay, so I'm gonna say this: Lupita Nyong'o is the reason that Us is as well received as it is. She easily could have knocked out a couple of the performances that were nominated that year. I would easily put her above Charlize Theron in Bombshell and easily put her above Saoirse Ronan in Little Women. Not to say that they were bad performances, they were not nearly as nuanced or as good as what Lupita Nyong'o does in the film. And the fact that she's playing both sides and playing them so perfectly. Like, there's not one point where like, oh, this character is better than this version of her character. No, they're both very well thought out, very well like they're both. If it was just for one of them, great. But the fact that she's doing both of them really amplifies the whole film and amplifies the fact that it's her performing the entire time. Robert Shaw is the third best performance in his film behind Schneider and Dreyfuss. And he does stick out a little bit in a way that takes you out of what Jaws is, which is a realistic film about this crazy shark attacks. And he's just kind of like pretending to be in Shakespeare in the Park.
Park, strike it from the record. Aaron, you're closing when you begin speaking.
All right. I'm going to try and squeeze as much into a minute as possible. All right.
That's what she said.
Thank you, Henry. Robert Shaw in Jaws does stand out initially as different from the rest, but I think that's kind of the purpose of the film. The longer you go into it, the more you get of him on the screen. He starts to fit in more and more. And when you get that incredible monologue, and yes, it is a monologue, it is for his character. The other characters get more screen time to flesh out their character. He gets a monologue, which he delivers incredibly. That in and of itself is an Oscar-worthy moment. It's in that moment when you learn his headspace, you learn what he's gone through. You start to realize that the actions that he does and the way that the character acts does fit in the world that they have set up, because anybody who's gone through what he went through would go off the deep end a little bit. You're not going to be completely okay after experiencing what he experienced. Lupita Nyong'o is excellent in Us, but I also think Winston Duke is excellent in Us, as both his character Gabe and as I believe it was Abraham was the Tethered's name, and that's a physical performance. The reason that I say that Lupita stands out is because the script is written to cater to her. She's the only one that can speak as both characters. She gets the most screen time. She delivers the twist and the explanation. And
with that said, we're going to bounce over to our beautiful judges and myself. This was a horrifical, as Madeeh stated earlier, dumbass word. With that said, we're going to go Alejandro, Tato, and then Jay. 30 seconds or less. Give us your primary reason of who you're picking and why you're picking them. Alejandro.
Man, I was so close with Madeeh. Like, he absolutely is correct. Lupita Nyong'o has an amazing performance in Us. All the character choices she makes, everything that she does draws your attention. But I think Madeeh shot himself in the foot talking about Richard Dreyfuss and how much competition Jaws had, because all the movies that did get nominated for Oscars are great movies, but Jaws is right up there with them. So I got to go with Aaron.
He meant Shaw, but yes. The rest of his point. Tato, we're going to bounce over to you.
Yeah, as Alejandro said, fantastic match on this one. Like, Aaron hit believable in all forms. Madeeh hit plays both sides. Lots of good back and forth there. But overall, Madeeh got there for me with that the movie hinges on Lupita, whereas Shaw is just one of 3 solid performances. So Madeeh.
All right, so we are split. Jay, you're going to be the deciding vote, the first one of the match. With that said, 30 seconds or less. Who are you picking and why are you picking them?
So I'm picking Madeeh on this one, and it's mainly because he, just like Tato said, it is the performance that the movie hinges upon. And I don't think that Aaron made the argument that he thought that he was making by saying that she gets more screen time. Yes, she gets more screen time, but you see the reason as to why she gets more screen time with the way that she performs as the character, all of the subtleties of playing 2 separate individuals. Regardless. And I think that hitting him with the Shakespeare in the Park line right there at the end of his closing was actually really good. Madeeh also said that he wasn't even the best portion of the film. And who cares if he's drunk all the time? Shit, I'm drunk all the time too, but I'm not going to hold that one against you. But Madeeh gets my...
For the record, it was just Shakespeare, not in the park, because we did strike that from the record. But with that said, Madeeh is going to take the first time we ever get to say that, because it got brought up. With that said, Madeeh is going to take a 2-1.
I just pulled a J. I've never seen Jaws.
Well, now I'm mad that you spoke nearly all of the 4 minutes. All right. You know what? Fuck you. We're going to the blind round, motherfucker. Let's play.
Fuck you. Let's go.
Madeeh, let me know. Watch along. I'm down. Get high and let's watch. Holy fuck, dude.
It's just in theaters. God. Just as good.
I know, but I've been busy all week, man. Like, it's, you know what I mean?
All right. So with that said, before I fucking take Madeeh out of my life as a friend, we're going to go into the 4th question, which is going to be in the category of prequels. Because of the relevancy of Orphan First Kill, I decided to write a prequel question. So my question is, what singular film, so that's important, singular film, not franchise film. Okay, there you go. Fucking A. Jeez. Fucking Aaron, like in bed, always quick on the trigger. What singular film would you most like to see a prequel for? So with that said, we're going to jump. Oh, yeah, you have to be in bed first. Well, with that said, we're going to jump to Aaron. 60 seconds when you begin speaking.
I just want to say, that joke is him saying that he has slept with me. I don't know why anybody would want to admit to that. Like, I just...
Look at him. He's hot. 60 seconds, motherfucker.
Apparently, I'm not a motherfucker. I'm a Henry fucker, according to you. All right, let's get into this.
Do you see why I picked you guys? I was like, I want Aaron to be my opponent, and I want Henry to host it, just because I know this shit's gonna happen.
60 seconds. Fucking, we're getting dislikes. Let's go.
All right. Speaking of things that have weird references to sex in it, the movie that I am picking is that'll make sense in a moment. The movie that I am picking is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Now, when you pick this movie, there are a couple different angles that you could potentially approach. Oh, there goes Madeeh. There are a couple different angles that you could potentially approach this from. Of course, someone could say, oh, do you want to look at the relationship? Or someone could say, do you want to focus on another relationship? But I'm picking a completely different angle with this one. Where the prequel to me is for this film is actually on the company itself, Lacuna. What they are doing in this movie and what is essentially used in this film as a plot device in and of itself is so incredibly intriguing. The idea of going into someone's memory and basically playing a track through someone's mind and erasing specific memories that pertain to one individual person or situation or whatever it is you want deleted. And it's the fact that in this universe, it seems to be commonplace. We see through all these small little shots in Eternal Sunshine of someone there to erase their dog or someone there to erase their kid. And it's like, how is this a commonplace procedure? And that's what I want to see.
All right. 60 seconds. Madeeh, whenever you begin speaking.
Honestly, I was really curious about where you were going to go with this one. Because when you said that movie, I was like, how the fuck are you going to do this? But all right. So I picked another romantic movie, but of a different vein. I went with the movie that is criminally underseen, About Time, starring Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams. This movie is a really heartfelt and loving story about a man who, in his family, has the ability to travel back through time. And one of the best parts about this film is the relationship between Domhnall Gleeson's character and his father, Bill Nye. I would like to see what Bill Nye's character went through as a young adult and growing up with his version of these powers. I would have, because he's one of the more sentimental characters. He's very smart. He's very wise. And you get the sense throughout the movie that he's done things and he knows kind of the ins and outs of how it works and why he should and should not do certain things.
And time. And with that said, is about time we start talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. 2 minutes rebuttal. Aaron, when you've been speaking.
So to continue my point from the opening with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you have this company with their employees make up most of the cast. You have Tom Wilkinson, Mark Ruffalo, Kirsten Dunst, and Elijah Wood all work for this company called Lacuna. And what they do is they go into a person's mind and they essentially are able to erase memories. And what people do is they go to them to have specified memories erased. And this is the thing that kicks off Eternal Sunshine, because after a big argument between Joel and Clementine, played by Jim Carrey, and Kate Winslet, without notifying Carrey, goes and has this operation done to basically kill their relationship. But the thing is, something like this has to be commonplace if the average person can go and find it and do it. Because as we see through the film, just through these shots of where they live, even how they dress, so to speak, neither Carrey nor Winslet are the most well-off people in this universe. So this has clearly reached the point where it is a commonplace thing that just about anyone can go and do. And that, to me, is an incredibly intriguing sci-fi concept. How do we get to a point where in the world it is an accepted practice where if you want something gone from your life, you can just go and erase the memory of it? And how do you create this possibility? How does it affect people at first? We see that, when it's done, you can create such a specified memory erasing that when it's revealed that Kirsten Dunst and Tom Wilkinson have had an affair before, you know, Dunst had a relationship with Ruffalo previously while having an affair with Tom Wilkinson, and he was able to erase the affair while not affecting anything else in her life, including the relationship with Mark Ruffalo. That is such a specific level of mind erasure that to me, it's just an incredibly interesting sci-fi film. And I think when you look at who made the film, Charlie Kaufman is such an intriguing writer with how he does things, that I think getting him to go back into that world and explore the origin of where this came from could make for a really interesting prequel.
Alrighty. So now we're going to bounce over to Madeeh.
So the reason I went with About Time is because I do want to spend more time in that kind of universe. It's not like this science fiction kind of thing, although it does have some elements of science fiction in it. It's more about the relationships, and that's something that can transfer throughout time, no matter what part of time or what time period you're in. One of the reasons I picked this film was because in House of the Dragons, I saw Matt Smith, and I was like, that guy looks like a young Bill Nighy. And that's honestly who I picked in my head for the cast of this, is having him play a young Bill Nighy and go through time and like figure out like the intricacies of how this time travel works. Because when you watch About Time, the best relationship is between the two of them. And you see him as this great father figure who is mentoring his son and saying, okay, don't use to get rich, don't use to get famous. And you get this sense that he did that and he learned from his mistakes, and now he's trying to pass on that message to the next generation. Every time that Domhnall Gleeson goes to him, is like, this happened or this happened, he's like, all right, hang on, let's go do this and we'll figure it out together. And like, he's very calm, and it's always as if he's been there before. And I'd love to see him go through all of those things and see if he had that same kind of background where his father was teaching him, or if he had to kind of figure it out on his own, because who knows what the relationship he had with his father was. I also would love to see how he met his eventual wife, and like story of how his kids came to be, and like how he's kept a secret and what he's doing. Because especially back in like the mid 1900s, you don't really have as much go, like if you're time traveling, it's not as obvious and you can get away with more, but you're also trying to figure out, okay, do I stop something like World War II from happening, or do I stop the Cold War from happening, or do I stop this from happening? There's so much stuff that he's gone through that you're just like, all right, why wouldn't he go back and stop this? Oh, and you see why it's affected the future, and how it might have made it worse, or how it might have made it different. So I really want to see the past side.
And About Time. All right. So that was 4 minutes with the first person who begins speaking.
All right. So here's my issue with an About Time prequel is, as you said, if we're going to focus on a young Bill Nighy, of course, it can't be Bill Nighy playing his character, and it can't be Domhnall Gleeson playing his character. And while I agree with you that About Time does a great job focusing on the relationship between them two, and the actors have great chemistry with each other, it's just that it is the actors that are elevating the material. You'd have to go with new actors to go with a younger story, and that leads to a chance of you not being able to recreate the same magic. And so if you can't recreate the same magic potentially of a movie that you've already done, what are we left with but a movie that is just treading ground in a slightly different way? It's the same concept. It's Bill Nighy's younger character using time to manipulate his life to get to the point where, you know, he fixes it. Even if you're saying like, oh, he tells him initially like, don't use it to get rich. Well, we can see the story of how he learned not to use it to get rich. We already get that concept with the things that Domhnall Gleeson does. It's just, it's not him trying to get rich. It's him manipulating time in other ways to affect his future, like with his initial first relationship, right? You're just treading water, and you're doing it on the grounds of, well, the first movie had a great emotional connection. But the truth is, it's not going to be the same actors. So there's no guarantee you recreate that relationship. And to be honest, Richard Curtis is not the same writer or director that he even was 10 years ago. I mean, his last film was yesterday, and I would say on an emotional impact, that didn't really deliver the way that About Time does. So I just think with this prequel, the concept of it even going forward has so many red flags. Whereas with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it's a different enough concept that I think you can approach it from a completely different angle. And thus it gives you more creativity to come up with a different film that can succeed. And I would argue that Charlie Kaufman's talents as a writer and now as a director are much sharper than the talent that would be going into your film.
I think here's the issue that I have with the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind prequel is you really get an almost perfect film just within that 2 hours or just under 2 hours that you have it. The fact that it is so established that you can do this and it's so many people have done it and you have that level of technology, that isn't something that just came about one day and then like a month later it was commonplace. Like you'd have to go back quite a ways and you'd still have to recast the actors who were in the film anyways. I mean, most of the younger actors who are in the film are much older now. So you would have to cast someone to play the younger version of themselves. Otherwise, you're doing like a deepfake version. So the same argument you're using for mine of like, oh, you'd have to recast someone and then see how it works. Yeah, you have to do that with yours too. That's
I would say the difference between our two films on the casting is I'm not necessarily pitching that you use the exact same cast. You know what I mean? Your movie, the reason that you've stated for why
I'm
you
not
picked
pitching
your
the same
movie,
cast either.
no,
I'm pitching a different
it's the
cast, but I'm
when
saying
I say cast, I mean characters. You're saying that the whole reason you pick your movie for a prequel is based on the relationship we see between those characters in that film. Mine is the concept in general. Maybe Lacuna as a company and the technology they use wasn't even invented by them. What if someone else did that? Let's see their story. It's the general conception of what they can do in this universe and that it is so commonplace that's interesting, not the relationships. And thus it gives you the room to craft a different story around it that isn't struggling to keep up with the one that came before it. It just gets to do it in a different way.
see, now as you're saying this, I just keep picturing Ready Player One in my head, where it's like you're trying to find like the original founder of the thing and see what his reasoning was and all that stuff. And that's not really something I want to see from this universe. I think they establish it well enough that there's like, all right, so there's this thing that can do it, it works, and they explain kind of the science of how it works. I'm not pitching like a family drama sort of thing. I'm pitching a character going through and saying, okay, I have the ability to time travel. No one knows. What can I do? And then learning from his mistakes. I'm making more of like there is going to be family elements to it, of course, but the main thing of this movie is going to be him going through time and figuring out, okay, this did this bad thing, this did this good thing, I'll stick with this way.
Whew. All right, so now we're going to go into the 60-second close-ins, going into Aaron first.
And what you've just described is exactly what About Time is. At its core, it's about Domhnall Gleeson, a guy who has the ability to time travel, moving back and forth through time, making changes, seeing how it affects him, and then working to fix it if it's something that needs to be fixed. As I said, you're pitching the exact same movie, but with a different set of actors on the basis of the first one had a great emotional core, and there's a chance that we can recreate that this time around. But there's no guarantee with that. Whereas with my movie, I'm saying that the general concept of what these people can do. I mean, Ready Player One is a comparison that's just being there to throw people off. This movie wouldn't be some action movie where they're doing an Easter egg hunt to try and find the creator. It's a drama. It's about focusing on the creation of this technology, the first use of it, seeing how it affects people. How does it become commonplace? This is something that is so foreign to us that you have the creative ability to do whatever you want, and you don't have to even connect it to the first film because the threads that I'm setting up are so minimally connected to those characters that you can make it different.
And we are going to go over to Madeeh. 60 seconds when you begin speaking.
Part of the great thing about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is the mystery of how they're able to do this. Like you don't need a step-by-step instruction of like, oh, this is how they're erasing this portion of the mind without doing anything else. People are overall dumb. You don't need to have them explained on a very basic level. All right, this is how we're erasing this portion of the mind. People aren't going to pay to see that. No one's really interested to see that, if I was to be honest with you. When I'm pitching in my movie is, yeah, it's going to be a risk. Every film you make is going to be a risk of whether it's going to be successful or not. But what I'm pitching is a character going through time and not focusing on specifically the love aspect, focusing more on, okay, I can either be selfish or I can figure out how to do things for the better good, or I can choose to just stay out of things completely. There was so many dark events that happened in the lifetime of what Bill Nighy's character would have went through that I really want to see him go through. Like, all right, that's not my problem. I'm not going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on this instead. And that's the part where I'm going through. I'm not focusing on him just. Domhnall Gleeson only focuses on romance. Bill Nighy, I want his character to focus on something specifically different.
And time. Who would have thought that the romance question would have been the most epic and the most action packed? So with that said, we're gonna go Tato, Jay, Alejandro, maybe. And then
I
if
think
not,
it's still here.
if not, then I'll jump in. But with that said, Tato, 30 seconds or less. Give us your reason of why you're picking who you're picking and reveal that person.
Basically, the argument that got me was the creativity aspect from Aaron. So I'm going to give the point to Aaron. He just was able to argue, I'm going to get more creative. You're pitching the same movie.
All right, so we have one vote for Aaron. Jay, 30 seconds or less. Give us who, generally speaking, why you're picking them and who it is.
Cards on the table, I have not seen either one of these movies. So if I was to watch a prequel based on these movies, the one that sucked me in the most was Aaron. But I think that he made a couple of fatal flaws in his argument that had Madeeh said anything about it, it could have been, I could have easily been swayed. He just kept changing his argument over and over, but that overall case that he made for his prequel is the thing that got me.
Just to be clear, are we going for Aaron for the vote here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're going.
All right. So with that said, we are going to a blind round. Unfortunately, Alejandro didn't get to vote there, but we saw his head nod, so maybe he agreed. So with that said, we are tied at 2 apiece. And like I said,
About Time's the movie I didn't watch.
woo! Aaron, I'm gonna be dead ass.
You bastard.
Put it if you're.
Come on, baby! I told you.
Like,
it's honestly brilliant.
Hold on. If your mental clarity is there, so the first movie that you're like, I want to watch a movie, but you're all the way there, top of the list, and I'm pretty sure it's on that.
For what it's worth, I have it on Amazon right now. I just never got to it.
All right. So with that said, we are going to go to the blind round. So as anyone who's not familiar with the blind round, I am going to give a general statement, and the competitors are going to give an answer. After both of their answers are revealed, then I will reveal the actual question, and then they will have a little bit of time off camera to prep. 5-10 minutes is roughly what we like to decide on. And so, don't judge them accordingly, because they only have 5-10 minutes, not a couple weeks like normal questions. So with that said, I'm ready for this. Gentlemen, are you ready?
No.
Game on, buddy. It's been a great one so far.
So here I'm gonna give you a little bit of inside Henry Confidential here. So my first 2 questions, obviously your strengths. Next 2 questions, I chose things that were not quite your bag. I wanted you to show me that you could be versatile. So with this blind one, I chose a category that was combined. So now I want you to fight it out. Less prep, obviously, combined. So you guys are on an even playing field here. So it's not a musical question, Henry versus Pez. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. So with that said, gentlemen, are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
Why not?
All right. Your general statement is, name an MCU movie.
Oh, fuck's sakes.
I'm going to take a moment to think about this.
We know the drill, because that's also Henry Confidential wrote this question. So.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and figure out.
You can't. I guarantee you. You will send me $1 million of your doctor dollars if you get this right or wrong, because you
whenever I get there. If I could have $1 million right now, it'd be great.
I agree, because I'm your friend.
Let's go Thor.
The first one, just to be clear.
Yeah, Thor, the first Kenneth Branagh one.
All right, so we have the first Thor. Aaron, whenever.
I'm going to go with Avengers Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron. Interesting. All right, so with that said, gentlemen, your question is...
I already hate this. You haven't even said the question.
I just want to put out there, every blind round I've ever written has been basic, because the concept is to fuck with the competitor. This is a whole new level if he came up with something a bit worse.
You ready for this?
No, but show us anyway.
What movie within the MCU would have been the best choice to first introduce Deadpool?
Oh, fuck's sakes. All right.
So we have Thor.
I'm so sorry, Madeeh. I'm so sorry, dude. This is awful for
and
both
we have
of us.
Age of Ultron. Yeah, you. And we're back. So these gentlemen have, had a little bit of time behind the scenes to prep their answers. So you just came back, but they had a little bit of time. So with that said, I'm going to bow out, and we're going to have 60 seconds when Madeeh starts. Correct?
Yes.
6 seconds whenever you begin speaking. Madeeh, good luck.
So I picked Thor, which came out in 2011. So I'm gonna go with a little bit of a different weird route on this one, and I'm sure Aaron is probably gonna pull some bullshit out of his ass too. But I'm gonna say that Deadpool shows up for like half a scene, not even. It's the scene where Thor is like going through the Shield compound trying to get Mjolnir back, because Shield surrounded the area because no one can pick up this hammer, and he's like fighting through Shield guards, and like he says, like he fights the big guy, and he's like, Thor's bigger, blah blah blah. And then you see Hawkeye waiting in the wings, and he's got an arrow pointed right at Thor's face, and he's like, I got a shot. Do you want me to take it? And Coulson's there, and I want Deadpool to be one of the other guys waiting in the wings. That they're like, all right, if we need to, we'll send in the big guns, which is Hawkeye and Wade. At this point, he is working for Shield. I'll get more into it in my next 2 minutes.
All right. So pre-Hydra Deadpool. Aaron, 6 seconds when you begin speaking.
All right. Well, I honestly from the jump may have fucked myself because I never even considered a cameo. I had to find a way to work him into the whole movie. All right. So okay, I'll start with this. Obviously, because it's Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool to the general public. Obviously, I'm going to keep the character. I can't think of any conceivable way that doesn't break any semblance of reality in these films to make it the same fourth wall breaking Deadpool that we got in Deadpool. So I'm just going to say it's Ryan Reynolds playing the same exact type of character, but being integrated into the MCU. That's it at this point. I'm already at about 20 seconds. So yeah, that's all I'm going to finish with is in my film, he is going to play a bigger part than just a cameo. And it's going to be Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, but it's not going to literally be Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool from Deadpool 1 and 2. And I'll concede the rest of the few seconds there.
All right. Two different approaches there. So we're going to go into the 2-minute rebuttal, starting with Madeeh when he begins speaking.
Yeah, I don't want Deadpool breaking the movie Thor, because Thor is actually a pretty good movie, and I think just having a small cameo on the side is perfect for what this question is asking for, and also how it would work. I mean, Hawkeye was in it for maybe like 30 seconds, and everyone was like, oh snap, that's Hawkeye. And I want kind of a similar thing where it's like, oh snap, that's Hawkeye, and that's Deadpool. They're both currently thing. My idea that I came up with sober somehow was that after the Thor movie happens, Deadpool decides that he's going to leave Shield and go out and be on his own, and then he's going to become the Merc, and then gradually over the course of a few years he becomes the Merc with a mouth, and then we see it in his own movie, which came out in 2016. So I also do have Ryan Reynolds in that role, but it's more just like they say his name. They don't necessarily have to put him on screen. They just say, all right, we have Wade and we have the Hawk in the sky, or whatever they said specifically about Hawkeye. It's a very, very small thing, and it could still fit within the timeline, whatever timeline it is now, where Deadpool becomes a mutant later on after being a Merc for a number of years. And Marvel kind of does this thing, man, where they have like these small seeds that they plant that they won't acknowledge for like years. Like Winter Soldier, they threw out Stephen Strange's name, and people are like, oh, Stephen Strange is coming. And then it wasn't like until like 4 years later that we finally got the Doctor Strange movie. So I have a similar thing for this, like where they just put out this name of a character and people are like, oh, that's coming. And then you just wait for it to come, because that's what we as MCU fans do now, is we find out the Easter eggs and then we wait like years before anything comes of it. I mean, Incredible Hulk, they had that whole thing, and now it's like 15, 20 years later that we finally have Emil Blonsky coming back, and now apparently Tim Blake Nielsen's also coming back. So Marvel does this kind of thing, and it would just fit in perfectly within the realm of the movie.
And time. We're going to bounce over to Aaron. 2 minutes when you get speaking.
All right, so my attempt to work Deadpool into Avengers Age of Ultron is at the start of this movie, we are introduced to Wanda and Pietro Maximoff. And they, in the comics, they are mutants. They are X-Men characters. But in the MCU, because we don't have the X-Men yet, they are two people who signed up to be basically genetically altered by Baron von Strucker by way of working with Loki's scepter. Now, in the movie, they say that there are numerous test subjects at this facility, but we only ever meet two of them, right? We meet Pietro and we meet Wanda. So my way of working Deadpool in is, again, following the MCU's pattern of not having mutants yet. Instead of being a mutant, he is going to be another person who signed up to be tested on. You can say that he was formerly a mercenary. You can say he was whatever, but he is someone who has volunteered himself to be tested on. This gives us a conceivable way for him to have all the different powers that he has. You can just say that he was an extremely successful test subject. What I would do with him is when the base fight happens at the beginning of the film, Wanda and Pietro escape because their powers allow them to manipulate their way out of the situation, right? Pietro is super quick. He can't be caught. Wanda can manipulate their minds. And so what I would do is I would have, even though Deadpool is a great fighter, I would have the Avengers take Wade and kind of keep him under captivity. What you do for the first half of the movie is you have somebody who's really not fighting against them. He's just in their captivity. And so it means that you can have scenes where maybe he's being held up somewhere in the background, and you can allow Reynolds to do what he does best, interject little quips, interject into scenes. And then the way that I would work him into the Avengers is halfway through the movie, give or take, we have a scene where a handful of the Avengers fly to Seoul to try and stop Ultron from uploading himself into the body. You could basically put some way together that because they don't have the whole team with them, Thor's away, Iron Man's away, to Wade convinces them to let him out to go with them, and then from there you can start to work him into the team.
Time. All right, so two different point of views, but some good ones at that. So we're going to go into the 4-minute open debate in the blind round whenever the first person begins speaking.
I would say for starters, I don't know how to fight yours because there's so little, if I'm just being honest. Maybe that's in your benefit at the end of the day. At this point, I don't care anymore. But I feel like if you were to load a second cameo into that scene, especially one that's not going to directly play into the Avengers, because your indication is that he would leave that scene and then go on to just kind of be in his own movie, maybe the ones we've even seen before already. I feel like you don't need it, right? At that point in the movie, because I don't love Thor personally, but I think it's one of the best sequences that's one of the best sequences in that film. I think you already have enough with the Hawkeye cameo, the equivalency of a Coulson cameo in that film, him going for the hammer. I just think throwing in a Deadpool reference or throwing in a Deadpool cameo at that point is just adding a little too much into the scene. When Stephen Strange's name is mentioned, it's not even mentioned. It's shown on the screen in the background of a side scene during an action sequence. Like it's like this cool little Easter egg, but it's not something we're drawing attention to. You're muted, by the way. I just in case, because if you want to interject, go ahead.
Sorry. His name is Stephen Strange's name is mentioned in.
Oh, okay. Was it Sitwell or one of those guys says it?
Yeah, it's like the
Okay.
I'm not there. I don't know the guys' names. But it's the dude who's like with the glasses and bald, and he's like a Hydra representative, and he's like,
yeah,
we keep tabs on all these motherfuckers. Like you, Fury, Stephen Strange, anybody who could potentially be a threat. So they just throw names out there every now and then, and they do shit like that. I'm not saying that Deadpool has to show up, but like I just want some, like whoever's on the radio be like, all right, we have the Hawk in the sky ready, get the mouth ready too, just in case. And like it just has to be that simple. Like you're just peppering it in. You're not throwing it out there as like an absurd, like, all right, this is this cameo. It's just showing that he's in the universe somewhere and we just haven't met him yet. And then you can follow up his story however many years down the line, because it doesn't need to be right away. I mean, movies happen in or things happen in the MCU that they've referenced and then they just don't touch on it for like years later.
Then I would say in the context of your scene, if we're saying like, oh, we have get the hawk ready, get the mouth ready, whatever. If fans even pick up on that reference that they're talking about Deadpool, I feel like that almost defeats the point of putting Hawkeye in that scene, because I think from the jump, the MCU knew that Hawkeye was a character you have to kind of position the correct way because he is so much weaker than everybody else. So in that scene, it's like in that moment at that base, Hawkeye's the top dog. That's the one you have to have ready to try and fight off Thor. And having Deadpool also on tap, if you know who Deadpool is, takes away from that, because in that moment, that's them painting Hawkeye as a threat to Thor, even though nowadays people may not feel that way. That's what they had to do back then to try and set up that character before he became more pivotal to the story in Avengers. Because in Avengers, the whole reason that like when he's pulled to Loki's side, it's because he's such an effective, useful agent. And I feel like if you take that away from him by putting Deadpool in that scene too, it retroactively hurts future films.
I think what you're getting at is that it would take away from what Hawkeye is, and I think that overall the MCU hasn't done justice to Hawkeye overall. I mean, let's be real, like he's a lame character in the movies when he has so much more to do in the comics, but that's not what we're arguing here. I think just because they're like, oh, we have this like archer ready, they didn't make him cool or powerful in that scene. They were just like, all right, he's there and this is his thing. Like it wasn't like, oh, this guy's going to take out Thor. Like they just had him there because they wanted to have that cameo. And I'm not saying that like you're going to take away from that. Hawkeye's still going to do the same scene. I'm just saying you change a little one word of dialogue.
And time. All right. So with that said, we are going to jump into the closing arguments. We're going to go to Madeeh. 1 minute when you begin speaking.
So I have a couple questions about Aaron's, which I didn't get to ask. More so that it was, are we still getting like the same kind of Deadpool, or is he trying to fit into the MCU? And with that, like you kind of have to tone down Deadpool, which kind of does defeat the purpose if we're being real. I really hope they don't do that with him. Whenever they do release a movie with him in it, I do want them to keep the R-rated, the Merc with the mouth, and have him break the fourth wall sort of thing. And you can't really do that in Age of Ultron if he's on screen for as long as you're saying, where he's a part of the team. Like I don't want him slicing Ultron and we're like, oh, he didn't bleed red, so my suit's changed color or something stupid like that. Like the quips are part of what Deadpool is, but it's not just the quips that he's making to other characters, it's the quips that he's making to us as the audience. And you don't really get that opportunity in your film or the way that you described it. I also don't know how a Canadian would all of a sudden end up in Sokovia as a volunteer, but that's neither here nor there. There's just so much about yours that just doesn't fit, whereas mine does.
Time. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm used to doing that. My bad, Henry.
And time. I was, it's the last one. I would let him go a little more than 5 seconds over. But with that said, 63 seconds, Aaron, when you begin speaking.
All right. So I would say that Ryan. So let's just get this out of the way. At least in the movie version of Deadpool, Deadpool's humor is just Ryan Reynolds' film. Like, there's a reason that people say that Ryan Reynolds is perfect for Deadpool, and there's a reason that people also say that Ryan Reynolds plays himself in everything, and he plays Deadpool and everything. It's because it's one and the same, right? So I would argue that Ryan Reynolds has more than enough films where referential humor is written into the script and references are made. I mean, the Adam Project is a recent example. If that's a PG-13 film where I think he gets a lot of funny jokes and references in. And I would also say that while the movie fucking sucks, the like 5 minutes that Reynolds is in before they sew his mouth shut of X-Men Origins Wolverine, I think there we got a glimpse of a good version of Deadpool in a PG-13 setting. It's just he only got 5 minutes. Look, I just did my best to answer the question as to how I would equate it. I think with Age of Ultron, because you're already introducing 3 other new Avengers, there's an easy pathway to just tack him on as well and add 1 extra person to that fight at the end. And I think Deadpool slicing some Ultron bots could be cool.
3, 2, 1, and that is time in 63 seconds. So with that said, we are going to bounce over to our judges, and we're going to decide who is tonight's winner. So with that said, we're going to go Jay, Alejandro, and Tato. 30 seconds or less. Remember, the question is, what would be the best MCU film to first introduce Deadpool into the MCU? So with that said, Jay, 30 seconds or less. Give us your primary reason of why you're picking who you're picking and who that person is.
I'm picking Madeeh, and I'm picking Madeeh because he did something a little underhanded and a little sneaky. He completely knocked Aaron off topic for his entire closing argument. He went off. He went off on this tirade about PG-13 movies that are other Ryan Reynolds vehicles and features that have absolutely nothing to do with the question. Um, Aaron almost had it for me with the way that he was introducing the character. It just wasn't enough, and Madeeh was able to fight back a little bit harder against the things that he was like, oh, you have that cameo of both him and Hawkeye, the Hawk up at the nest and Wilson. Like, that works for me as just like a fan of comics. And Aaron didn't do enough to just kind of shoot that down, because that's what the MCU is known for, and I think that that's what would make the best introduction for Deadpool.
All right, so with that said, we have one vote towards Madeeh. We're going to go over to Alejandro. Who are you picking in 30 seconds or less, and why are you picking him?
Yeah, I have to agree. I love the way that Aaron introduced Deadpool into Age of Ultron, especially having him be like a almost a background character like Alpha 5 or Circuit from Time Force. All my Power Rangers fans out there. But ultimately, Madeeh did absolutely sell me on the idea of having Deadpool in the Thor movie. If nothing else, Aaron conceded defeat, so I'm going to give it to him.
Madeeh Rehman.
Oh my god.
Madeeh. Deadpool will be proud, even though he barely showed up. 5-3, phenomenal record. You hit your goal of staying above 500. So generally speaking, what were your thoughts on A, your performance tonight, B, your opponent's performance tonight, and C, your just adjustments to the different style of question writing in tonight's match?
I'll tell you what, that speed round or bonus question, I definitely didn't adjust enough, because what the fuck was that? But
fire question.
So all right, so there's a lot to unpack there. I think my performance was good. Definitely could have been a little bit better, a little bit more fine-tuned. I think I lost track of where I wanted to go a couple of times, but shit happens in a debate.
Yeah.
Aaron did a hell of a job arguing his points, and
fantastic.
The Sunshine one, he definitely threw me off my game, because I had no idea where he was going to go with that one, and the answer he brought up was actually really good. So I got to give him props for that. And then the questions, I think the adjustments I made, as many or as few as they were, did help. I just need to make sure that I knock down everything properly and be more prepared, because I really got to make sure that if I want to win a debate and get a knockout eventually, which who knows if that'll happen, I got to make sure that every single question I'm in, I got to knock clean out of the park and really bring everything I can to every round.
Yeah, and just as something as a champ, it's one of those things where every time I prepare for a question, I don't only just prepare my attack, I also prepare their attack and try and base my defense on what I assume their attack is going to be. And it's a shot, don't get me wrong, shoot or shoot. But at the end of the day, 90% of the times it works, because even if I don't have the exact phrasing of how they're going to go about their approach, I at least have the general idea. So I'm prepared for it. I always think of it like at the end of 8 Mile. He's like, I know everything you're about to say. You know what I mean? So I'm either going to hit it first. If it's a question that I'm on my heels, I'm going to set it up like, yo, I already know what you're going to say. I'm already prepared for it. Boom, knock it out. So everything you say is going to negate, because I'm already ready for it. You know what I mean? Before you even bring it up. So I don't even have that point against me. So that's always a fun thing. And that's why I love even blind questions, because that's just how my mind works, where it's like, all right, I not only think about my points, but think of the defense. And it's a fun one where, once again, everyone can, feel how they feel about this type of question. But at the end of the day, I feel like it was a fun one. And I feel like regardless of what you guys think of the results, you guys had amazing actual debates. If you guys look at this, on the replay, you guys showed out in this final question. And I am really proud of how you came about it, especially not really being happy at the beginning. So with that said, it just showcases both of your overall abilities and just who you guys are within this league and within the debate, oeuvre. You know what I mean? You guys are fantastic debaters, and you earned this win, and you guys didn't go to the blind round for no reason. So congratulations to you. Any final thoughts?
If Aaron thought of the cameo thing the way I did for that last question, who fucking knows? I could be on the losing side right now, right? It's hard to it's one of those things you I have to think of it or you don't. And had Aaron thought of it, I probably, it would be a much different round. And to what you were saying about like preparing against what they're going to say, I tried to do that as best I could for all 3 rounds or all 4 rounds. The Eternal Sunshine one, he definitely got me out though, because no way in hell would I have ever thought of like that's the way he was going to go with. So really good props on that for him too. But no, Aaron's a hell of a competitor, and
Facts.
because I know that you don't bullshit people. Like the fact that you're saying that like we both brought it is enough for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's certain people like if they say, "Oh yeah, you guys both brought it," sure, okay, whatever. But when it comes to someone who's like we've known each other for a long time, and I've known that you don't like fuck around or say bullshit like that, I know that you're saying it from like a place of heart.
Yes.
So I appreciate that, man. Like we do our best out here, and we're really going for it. And Aaron might be the big boss of this league, but he ain't no chump. And I think every match he's been in, he's proved that. Like there's never been a
He's made me sweat. I've literally beat him 3 times, and I've literally earned it every single time. You know what I mean? He's a phenomenal debater, and you guys didn't. This was not a. He was literally down 1-0, and it was one of those things where on paper he got smoked, and he came back and he fought really hard. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things where you guys. I'm honored that you picked me as the host and the writer of this, and I'm honored that I was able to even watch this in general because you guys brought it, and congratulations. I'm excited to see like where you're going to go. Going in because you're not in the tournament, and I don't know exactly. With a 5-3 record, you deserve to be playing a match soon, but I don't know how that's going to go. That's Aaron's job, but we'll decide that in the future. But I'm excited for it.
My schedule's been all over the place the last like few months. Like new job, school's been heavy on the last like few weeks. So
congrats.
Whenever shit starts easing up a little bit, I'll definitely be more involved. But I had this talk with Aaron. I was willing to do the tournament. I was like, Aaron, if you're okay with it, I'm gonna try and figure out in the schedule. But he said, listen, with the amount of stuff that's going on, I want to make sure on a production side, and I completely understand. Like it's Aaron's call to make, and I agree with him 100%. But whenever I get a match in, I'll be ready for it. It's just scheduling is hard, man. Getting old and scheduling with this shit is oof.
I'm too old for this shit. So with that said, congratulations, and we're gonna bounce over to Aaron Connole right now. All right, Aaron, I'm gonna let you take it away. I know you have a lot on your mind. I'm gonna let you speak your mind. What are your thoughts on this match, and what are your thoughts in general? And you might be muted. I can't tell.
I am, yeah. Listen, I don't. I'm not here to slander anyone because, as somebody who does the job regularly, it is difficult. People have their thoughts on the questions that I come up with and how I write them, and the truth is, it's very much a 50-50 split of creative thinking and also a streamlined process that I don't talk about very publicly for reasons. When you write as many matches as I write, when you have as many questions as you have to have ready, you have to streamline it to some extent because one's brain cannot actively think of that many. So every time I step in the ring, I'm aware of the fact that it's somebody who's not me writing the questions, and similar as to how I don't tell the judges there's one way you're supposed to write or you're supposed to judge, I'm not going to tell anybody there's one way you're supposed to write. I personally would never ask a question like that to a competitor in the blind round capacity as an actual question. I think it's a great question. But that be it what it be. I don't want my feelings on it to take away from Madeeh. He played excellent today. The fact that he was on a 3-loss streak was incredible to me because he literally has not missed a beat since we relaunched this league. And he earned his win today, man. He had some great points. And he did something that I think a lot of competitors falter on, which is in rounds where he had the obvious choice, like that Umbridge round, because let's be real, she is. He didn't fail to deliver. I think sometimes people fall back a little bit on the safe answer, and it means they fail to deliver because the thought process is everyone thinks this way. And he didn't. He brought everything he needed to, which I have to give him the utmost respect for. So he did a great job. He earned his win. I'll certainly have him in there as soon as I can, albeit with the schedules and stuff. But we'll figure that one out because I'm certainly not going to leave him in the wind. As for me, I'm not playing until 2023. So fuck y'all. You guys are going to get vengeance on my end for this. But no, it is what it is.
So I guess my final thoughts is, so going into just the tournament now that you are mentally clear of as a player, is this something that you're able to adjust anything from a writer's and host perspective, or at the end of the day, this is a well-oiled machine and it's just going to see its course regardless?
I mean, I would say from a production perspective, if I'm being real behind the scenes, I produce the matches that I play anyways. So in terms of that aspect, there's nothing different. In terms of the writing perspective, I'm always open to new ideas. You know, as I've said, I have the banner on here somewhere, but like I take fan submission questions. Obviously, I make it a habit to here, I'll pull it up.
Like that.
I make it a habit to never write my own matches. And that's obviously aside from like the fairness thing. I like getting other people in to write matches. We had a couple of matches earlier this year where, like, as a prize for a competition, people got to write their own matches. Madeeh was one of those people. I'm always open to hearing other question ideas from other people because it is that exact opposite thing, right? Somebody who doesn't have to do this, you know, however many matches every couple of weeks is going to be fresher on a creativity aspect, and they're going to want ask the questions that they want to see asked, and thus it allows for more openness. And I've taken ideas from people who have written things, you know, like the whether or not it's aired yet or not, I have no clue, but like the question that was asked in our match of like if somebody were like a classic director were to have a film transplanted kind of to the modern day, like I think that's a great concept for a question. And there are a lot of classic directors you could apply that to, and without Papa West and Noah McCausland writing that match, that concept may not have entered my mind. Like I have to give them complete credit for that. And as I said, like on a personal level, I disagree with that question being a blind round question. I don't disagree with the question in general. I think it's a very interesting question. It's a great what if question, especially if you have a Marvel fan debating. Like it's certainly an interesting place to approach from. I may reuse it because I reuse a lot of blind round questions.
You have my blessing.
Especially if the like people can recognize that if they watch the matches. I reuse a lot of blind rounds, especially if the answers aren't ideal.
And if it makes you feel any better, no one's going to pick Thor and no one's going to pick Age of Ultron, so you're safe. Reuse it.
So yeah, look, you know, at the end of the day, I wear my feelings on my sleeve. I don't make an attempt to hide anything, but I'm also not here to shit on people because at the end of the day, you did a job that I normally do, and I know as the guy who does it that it can be tough sometimes to come up with ideas, and sometimes you get just these great ideas and you're like, I gotta run it and see where it goes. So I just appreciate and respect anyone who's willing to hold up ends of the show that I can't in situations like this. So, you know, be it what it may.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
Madeeh earned this shit. As much as I am going to bite myself internally because he gamed the system and didn't answer the question and still won, fuck, that was brilliant. It was. I gotta give him the credit. It was brilliant. So
introductions. It's fair play, baby. But that's what's special on the top of the dome. That's why shout out, little plug, me and Austin Pesau, we had a completely blind round match now. It's on the channel. Check that out. That's just how it rolls.
Can you stop using you hosting this match to service yourself? Let's wrap it up, buddy. Come
on. So as I'm servicing myself, my name is Henry Confidential. That is Aaron Connole. Make sure you check out TWBT movies because we're servicing ourselves more and everything I'm doing. No, I'm just kidding. Make sure you watch only my matches because we know that they're great. No, shout out to Aaron Connole. He's a fantastic host, fantastic writer, and fantastic overall producer of the show. Shout out. Oh, sorry, the Oscar music's playing. I don't have any other names saying. Shout out tonight, Jake Tato, Alejandro, Jay Burns, as well as our competitors, Aaron Connole and Madeeh Rehman. You don't have to shout me out. My name is Henry Confidential. This is the movie Battleground.